Mr. Sewela, thank you very much for your time, and thank you so much for welcoming us so heartily and with great hospitality here in the Mandela Room. And maybe that's a good place to start. Tell us a bit more about, I guess, what Barloworld wanted to achieve in setting up this particular space, I guess as a reflection on the memory of such a great man.
Briefly, I think very few people know the role that Barloworld played, leading up to the new dispensation. Our former president, Nelson Mandela, together with de Klerk, used to meet regularly at Barloworld.
So Barloworld
It was still Barloworld at the time. Basically during negotiations. And, at the time, our CEO and chairman was Warren Kulu, who played a lot of roles in interacting, with Nelson Mandela. And we built a lot of schools, in that regard. So we didn't have a specific, room, at, Barlow Park, but there was a mural that we had of Nelson Mandela. And we felt when he came here, just to continue his legacy, we dedicate this room to, Nelson Mandela, because the legacy, that he has created, will outlive many of us. And to that extent, I think it's important as we employ young people, they get to know more about the role that he has played, in actually getting us to where we are.
Dominic Sewela, the man, where did it all start? What would you say were the experiences in your formative years that laid the seeds for Dominic Sewela in 2019, leading a business that generates revenue over 60 billion rand, employing over 17,000 people who have their own dependents? Where did it all start for you?
I think for me, it started at an early age, when I was still at school, and that was out of poverty, where I was not privileged to have a lot of, things like money, carry money at school. And I just started, selling, sweets and peanuts at school. And that entrepreneurial spirit, just got on. Every year I'd do something, save money, start on another sort of range, start selling apples, oranges, and I would do wax as well. Because my middle name is Mali Enja, which means new man. Yeah. So, igama lami ke lelo, uDominic uza emva, So, but I guess, I would say my great-grandfather gave me that name with a view that I should really be focused about making money. And just making sure that at school one works hard. And you're always purposeful in life.
Sure.
And through various iterations, finishing school, going to university, studying chemical engineering, working for different companies.
You were saying to me earlier on that, the hustle never stops.
Yeah.
You've worked in different iterations. I mean, you're a returned soldier here at Barloworld, and worked here before, prior to coming back and leading the equipment division. Talk to us about what that means to you. When you speak about the hustle, what does that look like to Dominic Sewela?
The hustle is around always trying to do better than you did yesterday, year before. Because once you stop, it's like almost a plane in full flight, you'll plummet. And therefore, a lot of people, think about retirement or whatever the case may be. I think, for me, it's always trying to do better. And doing better is not only in financial terms, it's in the communities we live, is in what we do, be it in church or everywhere we are. And if we can try to do that, we'll have a different society in this country where we always trying to lift and do better, by ourselves and with others. Yeah.
You lead a very historic company, I guess, in the fortunes of South Africa. I mean, much of what, when I think about the built environment in South Africa, has been built with your direct or indirect assistance in whatever form. Talk to us about, the Barloworld you went into on your first day versus the Barloworld that you lead now. What are the key differences and what has remained the same?
I think the Barloworld that I joined in 1993 was a conglomerate. It employed close to 250,000 people. It was number 79 on Fortune 100. It probably was, top 3 in the JSE at the time. So...
what sectors did it play in then?
It played in various sectors. I mean, if I can start telling you about some of the sectors, you can think about packaging, food, electronics, mining, and the likes of PPC, Plascon. Those were companies that were part of Barloworld. And I joined that company out of excitement, with a view that I'll join this organization that I would be able to grow in various ways in different verticals at the time. And no sooner I joined, literally a couple of months, there was an unbundling that was taking place. And at the time, when you're a conglomerate, you tended to trade to a discount to your net asset value. And so, being a conglomerate was not in vogue at the time.
So you had to unlock some of that.
Yeah, and shareholders felt that, you have to unlock the values, of the business. And and that's a company that I joined at the time. Fast forward, 2006, 2007, when I had a conversation with the new management at the time, it was going through another unbundling. The point where they were unbundling PPC and Plascon, which was Freeworld coating later on. And I joined the company, what was far smaller, very focused in terms of equipment, and mainly, auto business. But still, what was the same? It was still a white male-dominated organization. The culture was not quite inclusive, what I found. And I think working with the chairman, Dominic Sewela, he started looking at his own board. He transformed that board, largely, and we were working with Clive Thompson, and I came on board. At the back of what we did in equipment, we focused on saying diversity and inclusion is very important in business. And I underscore inclusion because you can be diverse and yet not inclusive. So you then continue to have narrative, siloed conversation, interactions, of your employees. But when you are inclusive, you say, you bring you on board, but we want you to be part of without you changing who you are. And this applies particularly to gender. Often it's easy, even though I'm a black male, I could assimilate into a white male-dominated, because I can talk about sport, I could actually participate in sport. What happens to a woman when it comes on board? When there are no separate, dressing rooms in a technical environment for women, where are they supposed to change their clothes? When they experience certain emotions, why do you then label them? And that for me was to say, in fact, the problem is not about the people that you bring on board. It's you who are inviting them over that needs to change.
It's interesting, Dominic, or Maleja, I should say, that you raised that, because I think, if you look at maybe the first 10 years of our democratic transition, a lot of the focus was really just on the ownership structures without really changing the organizational, cultural aspects that you're referring to.
The ownership, a lot of people felt, when you own something, you can then direct, that capital, But I think the complexity of empowerment is not really just about ownership. There's a tendency about experience and control. Because you can own a share in a business. If you don't have control, you're just a minority. So when you have control, you're able to direct and says, what's the composition of the board? What must it look like? Therefore, but when you are also part of management, now not only do you do that, you actually execute, because you formulate the strategy and then you execute to ensure that you get a desired outcome. And that is in your hands. And so it was very important that you have a comprehensive outlook of saying, when you say somebody is truly empowered, it's not only when they have the capital, because people win the lotto today. Within 3 years, they lose all that money because they got no experience and know-how of how to actually, grow capital.
And talking about capital allocation decisions and what comes with that ownership. I mean, you say you came back to a Barloworld that was much leaner, much more focused. And I'm interested, since you have joined, in what you would make of some of the capital allocation decisions, some of the strategic decisions about key business units. Let's take a look at the equipment division, where you were there. The sectors that it feeds into, in particular the construction sector, has certainly faced its own ebb and flow over the last few decades or so. What impact has that had on Barloworld?
So I think, we need to understand, when you operate in a cyclical environment, there'll be good times and there'll be bad times. Sure. The issue is, what do you do with capital preservation during the good times? And then what do you do in the downtime, whenever you have, sort of a downturn? and in terms of saying, how do you ensure that you'll be around for another good time? And then what we've done, given that cyclicality, and once you understand how to balance, the effect, and that's what we did because we operate in several regions in Southern Africa. And all these regions were not actually experiencing downturn at the same time. So we're able to move people from one area to the other, and then we're able to move inventory as well from one region to the other.
It's benefits of diversification.
Yes, diversity. So that actually ensured that we're able to weather the storm.
Sure.
I mean, if you look even in the current environment where the construction industry is not existing in South Africa, basically what's carrying us is mining and contract mining in this business. And once again, is that diversity. And my sense is that that's what a company like Barloworld has done over the years to survive for 170 years.
Sure. And as you bring more people into the fold through your Kulasi's initiatives or even through your Imbeo offering, how do you see, sweating of those assets and the shifting of that inventory playing a role in that?
I think for us, we're saying, for us to operate in this environment, you need to have a license to trade from the communities where your business are held. And, so those communities need to be able to thrive. And for them to thrive, you'll be able to have constant supply of employees coming into your organization, but there will be improvement that infrastructure will need to be built in those communities. So Imbeo for us is a social impact entrepreneurial program. And, the foundation, as part of the BEE, it seeks to make sure that we can address some of the ills and invest into the future of those communities. Because, my role in this position is not about doing business for today. It's doing business long after I'm gone, so that whoever takes over from me has got a very strong, solid business to continue to grow. And that's why I say leadership is about stewardship.
Sure. We know you need to dash now, but I guess no better time than now to ask, how does a normal day look like for Dominic Sewela?
I normally have a day that I think is going to look like this because, I've prepared the night before what things needs to come. No sooner I walk into my office,
and there's all manner of other fires.
Other things, that happens, but, in the main, it's about engaging, my employees and really by just the immediate managers, but also because you're rolling out what we call Barloworld Business System. I spend most of my time in operation, interacting with employees, making sure that we're aligned in actually, in rolling out that Barloworld Business System. And that's what I enjoy the most.
Now, Mr. Sewela, before we let you go, any message to any young leaders in the world of business?
I think young people need to understand there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, but when you start something, it takes a while to grow. And so focus on what you're actually doing and ensure that you enjoy that immensely, and opportunities will present themselves for you to get other things into the future.